At 5:02 a.m., someone started pounding on my door like the building was on fire. Not knocking, not ringing the bell, pounding, hard enough to make the metal frame shudder. I sat up in bed instantly, heart already racing, because nobody shows up at your door before sunrise unless something is very wrong. Then the pounding got louder, faster, desperate. I grabbed my phone. No missed calls, no messages. That made it worse. I walked down the hallway, every step heavy, every instinct screaming that whatever was on the other side of that door was about to change my life. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. It was Mr. Sharma, my neighbor from across the street, 70 years old, retired school principal, always polite, always calm, except right now his face was pale, and his hand was still slamming against my door. I unlocked it. The second the door opened, he leaned forward, grabbed my wrist, and said in a hoarse whisper, "Don't go to work today." I blinked at him, confused. What? He tightened his grip. "Stay home, call in sick, do anything, just don't go to work." Then he looked over his shoulder, like someone might be watching, and added one sentence that made my chest tighten. "Trust me." Then he let go, turned around, and walked back across the street without another word. No explanation, no details, no warning about what was coming, just fear. Pure, quiet fear. I stood in the doorway, barefoot on cold tile, watching him disappear into his house. My phone buzzed in my hand, one notification, then another, then another. 3 emails from my manager, 2 missed calls, all between 4:47 a.m. and 5:01 a.m. My pulse started climbing, because my manager never called before 8 a.m. Never. Why was my neighbor so desperate to keep me away from work? What did my manager need from me so urgently before sunrise? And why, just a few hours later, would the same man who mocked me in front of everyone be begging me to answer his calls? 3 months earlier, my manager humiliated me in front of the entire office. Not quietly, not privately, publicly. It happened during our Monday operations meeting. Conference room B, glass walls, 40 employees packed into chairs. My manager stood at the front holding a printed report. My report. He didn't sit down. He didn't ask questions. He slammed the papers onto the table. Hard. The sound echoed through the room. Then he pointed at the numbers and said, "This is what happens when someone doesn't understand basic responsibility." Every head turned toward me. Every single one. My ears started burning. My hands went cold. I tried to explain that the numbers had been changed after submission, that the totals didn't match the original files, but he cut me off mid-sentence, raised his hand, silenced me. Then he said the sentence that stayed with me long after the meeting ended. "From now on, double-check anything he touches." A few people laughed, not loudly, but loud enough. One coworker smirked. Another whispered something to the person next to her. And just like that, the narrative was set. I wasn't competent. I wasn't reliable. I was the mistake. What nobody realized in that room was that the report he used to humiliate me had already triggered a silent investigation, one that would eventually destroy his career. Inside the company, everyone believed the same story about me, that I was quiet because I lacked confidence, that I avoided confrontation because I was weak, that I followed rules because I didn't understand the bigger picture. They saw my caution as hesitation, my documentation as paranoia, my silence as incompetence. Even my manager joked about it during meetings. He'd lean back in his chair, grin at the team, and say, "Careful what you send him. He saves everything." People laughed. Every time. They thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Because after that public humiliation, I made one decision. A quiet one. A disciplined one. Every day before shutting down my computer, I saved copies of every report I handled, every revision, every timestamp, every email attachment. I didn't announce it. I didn't brag about it. I just built a record, slowly, carefully, relentlessly. Not because I wanted revenge, because I knew something was wrong. The numbers kept changing, small adjustments, tiny discrepancies, always after approvals, always after audits, always after signatures. And every time it happened, the blame drifted toward me. Then, exactly 19 days before Mr. Sharma knocked on my door, I received a message that changed everything. The email arrived at 10:16 p.m., late, unusual. Subject line, Document Retention Notice. Sender, Corporate Compliance Division. The message was short. Please retain all records related to departmental financial reporting until further notice. That sentence made my pulse spike, because earlier that same day, my manager had asked me to delete a batch of transaction files. He leaned against my desk casually, smiling, relaxed. Old data, he said, no longer needed. But when I opened the folder, my stomach tightened. The totals had been altered again. Same accounts, same pattern, same quiet adjustments. And this time, the difference wasn't small. It was 48 lakh 72,000 rupees, nearly 50 lakh. Gone, shifted, reassigned without explanation. So instead of deleting the files, I copied them, all of them. Original versions, modified versions, access logs, user histories, timestamps. Then I printed the logs, 49 pages, black ink, white paper. Clear names, clear times, clear responsibility. And at the top of the list, repeated again and again, was my manager's login ID. 2 days later, something strange happened. Mr. Sharma started watching my house. Not casually, not absent-mindedly, intentionally, standing near his gate, looking down the street, checking passing cars. At the time, I thought he was bored. Retirement can do that to people. I had no idea he had witnessed something that would soon put my entire company on the front page of the news. At 6:03 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Not a call, not an email, a message from my manager. Where are you? No greeting, no context, no explanation, just urgency. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the reply box, and for the first time since waking up, I felt something shift inside my chest. Not fear, suspicion. Because if everything was normal, he wouldn't be chasing me before sunrise. And if everything wasn't normal, then Mr. Sharma's warning wasn't random. It was protection. By 6:11 a.m., I had 9 missed calls from my manager. 9. In less than 20 minutes. That alone told me something was wrong. He wasn't the type to panic. He was the type to control, to dominate, to humiliate, to make people feel small. But panic leaves fingerprints, and his fingerprints were all over my phone. Another message appeared. Call me immediately. Then another. Do not be late today. The capital letters weren't his style. He prided himself on calm authority, measured tone, professional language. This felt different, desperate, like he needed me somewhere specific, at a specific time, for a specific reason. That was the moment I made a decision that would save my career, and possibly my freedom. I put my phone face down on the table and didn't respond. The house felt unusually quiet, too quiet. Outside, the streetlights were still on. A stray dog wandered past the gate. Somewhere in the distance, a motorcycle engine started. Normal sounds, ordinary sounds, but my instincts kept whispering the same sentence. Something is about to happen. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight. because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about missing work. This was about being present at the wrong place at the wrong time. At 7:18 a.m., my coworker Ritu called, and her voice sounded like she'd just seen something she couldn't process. "Where are you?" she asked immediately. "At home," I said. Silence, then a long exhale. "Don't come in," she whispered. My pulse jumped. What happened? Her voice dropped even lower. "There are people here." "What people?" Another pause. Then she said the words that made my stomach drop. "Government officials." I felt the air leave my lungs. Officials. Not auditors, not managers, not consultants. Officials. And then she added one detail that changed everything. "They're asking for transaction records." I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. Every muscle in my body went tense, because those were the exact records my manager told me to delete, the exact files I refused to erase, the exact documents I saved. My mind started connecting pieces. Late night email, urgent deletion request, compliance notice, early morning calls, Mr. Sharma pounding on my door. It wasn't coincidence, it was convergence. My phone vibrated again. This time, it was a photo message from Ritu. I opened it, and my breath caught. The image showed the office lobby. 6 people in dark suits, 2 uniformed officers, security standing stiff near the entrance. And on the reception desk, stacked neatly in a row, were sealed evidence boxes. Brown cardboard, white labels, black markers. Each box numbered, each box tagged, each box official. I zoomed in. Box number 4 had a label that made my chest tighten. Financial reporting, Q3. That was my department. At 8:02 a.m., my manager called again. This time, I answered. His voice sounded completely different. No confidence, no sarcasm, no authority, just tension. "Where are you?" he asked. "At home," I said calmly. Silence, then a sharp inhale. "Why aren't you here?" I paused deliberately, let the silence stretch, because for the first time in months, he was the one waiting for my answer, not the other way around. "I took the day off," I said. Another silence, longer this time. Then his voice dropped, low, urgent. "You need to come in immediately." That sentence felt like a command wrapped in panic, and it confirmed something important. He needed me inside the building, physically present, logged in, accountable, visible. That's when I realized something chilling. If I had walked into the office that morning, I would have been sitting at my desk when investigators arrived. My badge scanned, my login recorded, my name attached to every system action, exactly where he needed me to be. My phone buzzed again, another message, this time from an unknown number. No name, no company, just digits. I hesitated for 2 seconds, then answered. A calm voice spoke on the line, professional, controlled, measured. "Good morning. Is this Arun Verma?" "Yes." "This is Officer Desai from the Financial Investigation Unit. We need to confirm your availability for a brief conversation later today." My throat tightened. Availability, conversation, formal words, heavy meaning. "What is this about?" I asked. A short pause, then, "We're reviewing documentation submitted anonymously last month." My heart started pounding because I knew exactly what documentation he meant. The files, the logs, the records, the proof. And then he said the sentence that changed my position from suspect to witness. "You are not under investigation." At 9:37 a.m., the company group chat exploded, messages flooding in, dozens per minute. Confusion, fear, panic. One employee wrote, "They sealed the finance department." Another, "Security won't let anyone leave." Another, "They're copying hard drives." Then a message from HR appeared, short, cold, official. All employees are required to remain in their assigned areas until further notice. That sentence spread through the office like electricity because it meant one thing. Control had shifted. Authority had changed hands. Power had moved. At 10:12 a.m., Ritu called again. This time she sounded shaken. "Your manager is pacing," she said, "back and forth, back and forth." I closed my eyes, and for the first time I felt the balance tilt. Because the man who once humiliated me in front of 40 people was now losing control in front of the same audience. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. "They just asked for you." My eyes opened. Who? The investigators. Silence filled the room, heavy, dense, unavoidable. "They asked where you are," she repeated. And that's when I remembered Mr. Sharma's exact words. "Just trust me." Because if I had ignored him, if I had gone to work, if I had walked into that building, I wouldn't be sitting safely at my kitchen table. I would be inside a locked office, surrounded by investigators, explaining documents I didn't create, defending numbers I didn't change, carrying blame that wasn't mine. At 11:26 a.m., my phone started vibrating nonstop. Call after call, message after message, voicemail after voicemail. All from the same person, my manager. 5 calls, 7 calls, 10 calls, 12 calls. By 11:41 a.m., he had called me 17 times. 17. The same man who once ignored my emails for days, now chasing me like his future depended on it. Because it did. At 11:52 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Not a call this time, a voicemail from my manager. I stared at the notification for a full 3 seconds before pressing play. His voice came through shaky, breathing uneven, nothing like the confident tone he used in meetings. "Arun, please call me back," he said. "We need to talk, urgently." Then a pause, a long one, and finally the sentence that told me everything had collapsed. "They're asking questions I can't answer." I leaned back slowly in my chair, because 3 months earlier he had stood in front of 40 people and told them I didn't understand responsibility. Now he was the one running out of answers. At 12:03 p.m., the first news alert hit my phone. "Breaking news," bold red banner. "Financial services firm under investigation." I opened the link. Live video filled the screen. Helicopter footage, police vehicles, uniformed officers, yellow barricades, and a crowd of employees standing outside the building, confused and whispering. Then the camera zoomed in, and there he was, my manager, standing near the entrance, surrounded by investigators. No suit jacket, tie loosened, face pale, eyes darting around like he was searching for an exit that didn't exist. The same man who once controlled every meeting now looked like he couldn't control his own breathing. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Ritu. Her voice sounded stunned. "They're bringing boxes out," she said. "What kind of boxes?" I asked. "Evidence boxes." I closed my eyes for a second, because I already knew what would be inside them. Hard drives, printed reports, transaction logs, and the exact documents he told me to delete. A message popped into the company group chat. One line, sent by someone in accounting. "They found the backup server." That sentence hit like thunder, because the backup server stored every revision, every edit, every unauthorized change. Nothing erased, nothing hidden, nothing forgotten. Another message appeared seconds later, a photo. I opened it and felt a slow, steady wave of certainty rise through my chest. The image showed investigators standing around a conference table. Spread across the surface were printed documents, dozens of them, highlighted numbers, red markings, sticky notes, and right in the center of the table was a page with a familiar heading: Quarterly Financial Adjustments, Authorized Changes. Underneath the title was a signature, my manager's signature, clear, visible, undeniable. At 12:17 p.m., my phone rang again. Unknown number, same area code as before. I answered immediately. The voice on the line was calm, controlled, professional. Mr. Verma, this is Officer Desai again. Yes? We've completed the initial review of the records you preserved. Preserved. That word landed differently. Not submitted, not reported. Preserved. Like evidence kept safe until the truth was ready to surface. He continued. Your documentation established a clear timeline of unauthorized financial activity. My grip tightened around the phone. Timeline. Unauthorized activity. Each word carried weight. Each word confirmed what I had known for months. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. You are considered a cooperating witness. I exhaled slowly, because in one moment, my position shifted completely, from suspected mistake to protected source, from liability to asset. And then he added something else, something heavier. Several individuals are being detained for questioning. Detained, not interviewed, not reviewed. Detained. At 12:41 p.m., the second news alert arrived. This one included video. I opened it and felt the room go completely still. The footage showed the front entrance of the building, investigators escorting employees outside, one by one. Then the camera focused on a familiar figure, my manager, walking slowly, hands behind his back, metal handcuffs visible against his wrists, flashbulbs exploding around him, reporters shouting questions, cameras recording every step. The same man who once mocked me in front of 40 coworkers was now being watched by thousands of strangers, publicly, irreversibly, humiliatingly. He looked smaller, older, defeated, and for the first time since I met him, completely powerless. Within minutes, the company group chat went silent. No jokes, no sarcasm, no speculation, just quiet. Then a new message appeared from HR. All operations are suspended until further notice. Another message followed, short, direct, official. Employees will be contacted individually regarding next steps. That was the moment everyone understood. The company wasn't just under review. It was collapsing. At 1:06 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from my manager. I hesitated before pressing play. His voice sounded broken, breathing uneven, words stumbling over each other. Arun, please, he said. I need you to explain what's happening. Explain. The same word he used when I tried to defend myself months earlier. Back then, he didn't listen. Now, he was begging. I let the message end and didn't respond, because explanations come before consequences, not after. By 3:32 p.m., the story was everywhere. News websites, social media, television broadcasts, headlines spreading fast. Senior manager arrested in financial misconduct case. Company records reveal unauthorized transactions. Whistleblower documents trigger investigation. Coworkers started sending messages, some apologizing, some shocked, some suddenly respectful. One message stood out, from the same colleague who laughed during my humiliation meeting. I guess you were right. Short, simple. Too late. Because respect given after exposure isn't respect. It's survival. At 6:14 p.m., there was one final knock on my door. Not pounding, not urgent. Gentle, steady. I walked down the hallway, looked through the peephole, and saw Mr. Sharma standing there. Calm again, composed, exactly like the man I had known for years. I opened the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he gave a small nod. "Everything all right?" he asked. I held his gaze and answered quietly, "Yes." He studied my face for a second, then smiled faintly. "Good," he said, and turned to leave. I stopped him. "How did you know?" I asked. He paused, looked back, and spoke in a low, steady voice. "I saw investigators arrive at the office building at dawn," he said. They were waiting. A chill moved down my spine, because that meant the raid had been planned long before sunrise, long before the calls, long before the panic, long before the collapse. At 5:02 a.m., my neighbor told me to stay home. By 12:41 p.m., the man who called me incompetent was standing in handcuffs on live television. And from that day forward, nobody ever laughed when I saved my records again. 3 days after my birthday, the first public crack appeared. Not in court, not on social media. In a lobby that smelled like lemon cleaner and wet umbrellas. Eastline Medical Plaza had a vendor review meeting every November. Nothing glamorous, just fluorescent conference lighting, stale pastries, folders, and people with enough authority to destroy a company without raising their voices. I had attended those meetings for years, while my father did the talking, and I quietly answered every question he couldn't. This time, I wasn't supposed to be there. At least, that's what Mason told them. He had already informed Eastline that I was on leave, but Richard Bancroft had seen my email. He had seen the contract pages. He had seen the timeline. So at 8:55 a.m., I walked into Eastline's administrative building, wearing a charcoal suit, my hair pinned back, carrying a leather binder with every continuity document I'd ever submitted for them. Mason was already in the conference room, laughing too loudly at something a board member said. My father stood near the window with both hands in his pockets, posture easy, expression smooth. The moment he saw me, the ease vanished. Richard Bancroft didn't even sit down before asking the first question. "Before we begin," he said, "I'd like clarification on operational continuity. My understanding is that Miss Ellis is no longer with Hart. Is that correct?" My father smiled. "A staffing adjustment, nothing more." Richard looked at me. "Miss Ellis?" I opened my binder, slid a packet across the table, and said, "I'm no longer employed by Hart Facility Services as of Friday night. Pages 3 through 9 summarize open dependencies previously assigned to me, including unresolved continuity items due within 14 days. No drama, no raised voice, just paper. Real paper terrifies liars." Mason went red first. "This is inappropriate." Richard kept turning pages. Then he stopped. "Your emergency staffing tree lists Ellis Operational Solutions as active support," he said. "Is that no longer in place?" "No," I said. "And Hart has replacement infrastructure?" I looked at my father. He looked back at me with murder in his eyes and a smile pasted over it. "We're managing it internally," he said. Richard's expression didn't change. Then he asked the only question that mattered. "When was Eastline informed that the continuity system it has relied on for 2 years was not actually housed inside Hart Facility Services?" Silence. It was delicious. Not loud, not dramatic, just slow and fatal. My father opened his mouth, closed it. Mason started talking about transition plans and future improvements and some confusion over vendor naming, which was executive language for, "We got caught lying and I need noise to cover it." Richard shut the folder. "Thank you," he said. "We'll pause renewal pending document verification." Pause. That single word cost them more than any insult ever thrown at me. Because Eastline wasn't just a client. It was a reference account, a reputation account, a "We service major medical properties" account. And the second we walked out of that building, my father grabbed my arm so hard my elbow cracked against the wall. "You think you can embarrass me in front of clients?" he hissed. I looked down at his hand on my sleeve, then back at his face. "You did that yourself," I said, "at my birthday dinner." He let go like I'd burned him. Things spread in layers. First, clients know, then employees know. Then the people who never cared about details but live for the smell of collapse start sensing it from 2 streets away. Within 10 days, employees were calling me from parking lots, supply closets, loading docks, and Dunkin' drive-thrus. Not all of them, just the smart ones. The ones who understood that power in a family business does not sit where the loudest man stands. Jorge called again, then Angela from payroll, then Denise, not my aunt, another Denise, one of our site supervisors in Newark who had been with us 14 years and had never once wasted my time. "Can I ask you something off the record?" she said. "Yes? Did you quit or did they push you?" "They pushed." She was quiet for a second, then, "That's what I thought. Because your brother just approved bleach stock for a pediatric building using the wrong concentration sheet, and when I told him that could get us removed, he said I was being negative." 2 days later, a property manager from a downtown law firm forwarded me an email Mason had sent promising no disruptions, despite missed overnight coverage 3 times in 1 week. The same afternoon, Aunt Denise called and cried. Not because of me, because she had shown the family email chain to my mother's sister, who immediately said, "Robert always does this. He humiliates the daughter and markets the son." That sentence made its way through the family faster than the original smear. At church the following Sunday, Vanessa didn't sit with her usual group. A family friend later texted me a photograph from the parking lot, my father near his car, jaw tight, pretending not to notice 2 men from the men's fellowship looking at him and then at their phones. Truth travels differently when it carries attachments. Then came the first resignation, then the second. Then the rumor that Hart was late on a supplier payment. Then a local facilities Facebook group started whispering about leadership instability at Hart. Then Eastline's pause became an internal review. Then St. Catherine's procurement office requested direct confirmation of who had handled the previous 2 years of emergency continuity planning. My phone rang that afternoon from a number I knew by heart. Priya Shah, Regional Operations Director for St. Catherine, one of the few people who had always looked at me when asking questions, not at my father. "Lena," she said without preamble, "I'm going to ask you this once. Were you the reason Hart kept this account stable during winter surge?" I leaned back in my chair and looked out my apartment window at the parking lot below. "Yes." Another pause. Then she said, "That's what I told my board." 3 days later, she asked me to meet for coffee, not to gossip, to discuss alternatives. That was when my father finally understood the first part of the truth. He had not fired an assistant. He had detonated the only person who knew where all the load-bearing walls were. He showed up at my apartment building that Tuesday night just after 9 o'clock. No call, no warning. I saw his black sedan through the blinds before the buzzer even rang. For 1 insane second, my body reacted like it always had. Tension in the shoulders, quickened pulse, that old reflex that said, "Brace yourself. He decides the emotional weather." Then I remembered the Eastline meeting, the paused renewal, the unanswered retainer, and I did something I had never done before. I let him wait. He buzzed 3 times, then called, then buzzed again. Finally, I answered through the intercom. "Yes?" His voice came out softer than I expected. "Open the door." "No." "Lena, don't do this on a box speaker." "Then say what you came to say." I heard him exhale, hard. "You've made your point." That almost made me laugh. My point. as if my point was emotional instead of structural. "You need to fix this," he said. "There's nothing for me to fix. You are hurting your family." There it was, the oldest weapon in the room, family. I leaned my forehead against the cool wall beside the intercom and closed my eyes. "You called me a disappointment into a microphone at my own birthday dinner. You provoked that." That sentence broke something in me so completely it felt clean, not shattered, clean, like finally seeing a fracture that had been there for years. "No," I said. "You just finally did in public what you've always done in private." Silence. Then his voice changed. The softness vanished. "You think clients will trust you over me? You think 1 or 2 meetings makes you a business owner? You are nothing without this family." I pressed the disconnect button while he was still talking. Through the blinds, I watched him stand under the building awning for another 2 minutes, face lit by his phone, shoulders square with rage. Then he got back into his car and left. At 9:27, Mason texted, "Dad says you've lost perspective." At 9:29, I texted back, "Tell Dad I found it." Starting your own company sounds glamorous when people say it after the hard part is done. It isn't glamorous. It's fluorescent office listings, cheap coffee, printer toner on your fingers, a calculator open at midnight, and the private terror of betting your whole life on what you know. But fear feels different when it belongs to you. Priya introduced me to a property group that had quietly been looking for a specialist in crisis continuity for medical and municipal facilities. Not a giant firm. Better, hungry, precise, unimpressed by family names. I met them on a Thursday in a conference room with gray carpet and a bowl of wrapped mints no one touched. They asked real questions, hard questions, specific questions. How fast could I rebuild a service continuity tree for 12 sites? What failure points had I seen most often in family-run vendors scaling too fast? What metrics did I use when supervisors claimed labor shortages, but time card clustering suggested ghost hours? I answered all of them. I did not shrink. I did not apologize for knowing too much. I did not soften my language to make a weak man feel bigger. At the end of the meeting, the managing partner, a woman named Celia Moreno, closed her notebook and said, "You've been doing executive-level recovery work for years." I smiled once. "Yes," I said, "I've just never been called what I was." 3 weeks later, Ellis Operational Recovery signed its first contract. 32 days after my birthday, I moved into a modest office on the 12th floor of a building overlooking the Passaic. Nothing flashy. Frosted glass door, 4 desks, a conference room with one wall I painted deep green because I was tired of pretending professional spaces had to feel dead to count. I hired Angela from payroll first, then Jorge, then Denise from Newark after Hart wrote her up for tone. That alone told me everything about how badly Mason was spiraling. By January, we had 7 clients, not stolen, followed. There's a difference. I never poached under active restrictions. I never lied. I never sabotaged service. I simply answered when people asked who had really been doing the work. And because God has a sense of humor, the first framed object I hung in my office was not a diploma or a certification. It was the wire confirmation for the $25,000 retainer my father had refused and then, 5 weeks later, begged to pay. Because yes, he came back. Not in person that time. By January 3rd, after the holiday staffing mess nearly wrecked them, he emailed, "If you are willing to consult for 30 days, name your number." I wrote back, "No." 2 minutes later, "We can do $40,000. No. Then, $60,000, transition only. I read that in my new office, seated at a desk I had bought with my own money, sunlight cutting across the floor, Angela laughing in the outer room over something Jorge said. For years, My father had made me feel expensive whenever I needed fairness. Now he was offering $60,000 for the privilege of temporary access to what he had called managing calendars. I still said no, because by then, money wasn't the point. Proof was. And proof was about to get uglier. The forged signatures surfaced on a Monday. Cold, bright January Monday. The kind where office windows look like polished steel and everybody walks faster because the wind makes cowards of us all. Angela brought me a stack of forwarded vendor statements just before lunch. Most were routine confusion. Old contacts still using my email, billing systems that hadn't been updated, supervisors bypassing Hart leadership because nobody trusted answers coming from Mason. Then I saw one invoice and everything narrowed. DMR Logistics. New billing period. Same fake formatting. Same invented rush fees. Same forged initials. Mine. Except this invoice was dated 3 weeks after my termination. I remember setting the paper down very carefully, then picking it back up, then checking the attachment metadata. Sent from a Hart internal account. Approved after I was gone. That was the moment suspicion became a blade. I called my attorney at 12:07. By 2:15, we had preservation notices drafted. By 4, I had compiled a side-by-side comparison of authentic approvals, forged initials, transfer dates, invoice routing, and the old file I'd made before my birthday. The numbers had grown. Not $187,420 anymore. $264,980, which meant they hadn't just covered something up. They had continued it after throwing me out, maybe because they assumed the easiest scapegoat was the daughter already labeled unstable. My attorney asked the obvious question. Do you think your father knows? I stared at the city through the conference room glass. Yes, I said. I think he knows enough to be terrified and not enough to stop it. We sent notices to Hart's counsel, the affected vendor payment processor, and 2 clients whose contract terms required reporting of suspected approval fraud tied to service continuity spending. I did not send anything to my father directly. I wanted the shock to reach him the way mine had reached me, in a room full of other people, with documents. That Wednesday, my phone exploded before 8 a.m. Dad calling. Mason calling, Vanessa texting, Dad emailing, subject line, call me now. Then voicemail. And for the first time in my life, my father sounded old. Not weak, not gentle. Old. Lena, he said, voice rough. Whatever you think you found, it needs to stay in-house. Call me before you make this worse. Before you make this worse. That was always the trick. He lights the fire, you become the criminal if you point at the smoke. I didn't call him back. At 11:40 a.m., my Aunt Denise texted, "What is going on at the company? Your father just left lunch with Father Michael and looked like he'd seen a ghost." At 12:02, Mason sent a voice note so angry he could barely breathe. You want to ruin me over paperwork? Over paperwork? After everything this family has done for you? Paperwork. That word again. Men like Mason only call it paperwork when the paper can bury them. The next 3 weeks were not dramatic in the movie sense. No one got handcuffed on my doorstep. No dramatic press conference. What happened was worse. Systems of trust began failing one after another. The bank that backed Hart's operating line requested updated financial assurances after one of the flagged expenditures touched a restricted service category. St. Catherine suspended expansion talks. East Line made its pause permanent. A long-term school district account requested third-party review. 2 suppliers shifted Hart to cash on delivery terms. Employees started whispering about delayed reimbursements. Vanessa stopped posting photos from restaurants. Mason's wife deleted her future COO wife bio. Then a rumor hit that Hart had put one of the company vehicles up for sale privately to cover short-term obligations. I couldn't confirm it, but I didn't need to. The smell of panic was already everywhere. My father called from unknown numbers when I blocked the old ones. He emailed from his personal account, then his assistant's account, then an old AOL address he must have had since 2008. He showed up at my office building twice and got turned away both times because I left his name at reception with one instruction: do not send him up. Each time he escalated, I got calmer. That was the part he hated most, not my refusal, my composure. He was used to my pain making him feel powerful. He had no defense against my indifference. Then, in February, he made his worst mistake. He tried to take my company from me the way he'd taken my labor. He called 3 of my clients and said Ellis Operational Recovery was using proprietary Hart processes and that legal action was forthcoming. Unfortunately for him, one of those clients was Celia Moreno, a woman who had spent 15 years eating insecure men for breakfast. She forwarded me his message with exactly one line above it: "Do you want me to handle this nicely or permanently?" I stared at the email and felt something warm and fierce unfurl in my chest. For years, I had been alone in rooms where the truth had to crawl. Now I had witnesses with resources. My attorney handled the official part. Celia handled the social part. 3 days later, at an industry luncheon my father had attended every year like he owned the air, Celia asked him in front of 6 property directors whether the proprietary process he was referring to was the continuity framework documented under my entity or the forged vendor approvals under review. No one raised their voice. No one needed to. A man like my father can survive insults. What he cannot survive is a room realizing he has been bluffing for years. He left before dessert. By March, my office had grown from 4 desks to 9. We signed a municipal building group contract worth more in 1 quarter than I had earned in 3 years at Hart. Angela started wearing red lipstick to work because, in her exact words, "I finally have a job where my blood pressure doesn't count as a performance metric." Jorge stopped apologizing before he spoke. Denise ran team briefings like she'd been born for it. The frosted glass door downstairs now had my name on the suite directory. Ellis, Operational Recovery. The first time I saw it, I stood there longer than I should have. Not because of vanity, because for the first time in my adult life, a professional space reflected the truth back at me. Then, of course, my father found a way to make it uglier. He sent Vanessa. Vanessa had always specialized in polished cruelty. My father humiliated openly. Mason lied lazily. Vanessa did the soft, expensive version, champagne voice, razor blade intent. She came to my office unannounced on a Thursday afternoon, carrying a white leather tote and wearing a camel coat that cost more than my first car. Reception buzzed me. "There's a Vanessa Hart here?" Mia said carefully. "She says it's personal." I almost said no. Then I said, "Send her in." Vanessa stepped into my office, looked around once, and smiled the way women smile when they want you to know they've already judged every object you own. "Well," she said, "this is industrious." I didn't offer coffee. She sat anyway. "I'll be direct," she said. "Your father is under extraordinary pressure, and Mason is not well. This has gone far enough." I folded my hands on the desk. "Then you came to the wrong office." Her smile thinned. "You've made your point." Again with that, my point. As if I'd been chasing emotional closure instead of defending myself from fraud and slander. "What do you want?" I asked. She took out her phone, turned it over in her hand, then set it down face up between us like bait. "Withdraw the allegations. Clarify that the approvals were part of a delegated process. Quiet the clients. Let this de-escalate." "No." "Lena, be realistic. Families survive worse than this." I leaned back in my chair and looked at her for a long moment. "Did you know he was going to do that at my birthday dinner?" Her eyes didn't move, not 1 inch. That was enough. I nodded once. Then you can leave. She didn't. Instead, she lowered her voice and said the sentence that made me understand exactly how desperate they were. If your father falls, there are assets tied up you may still care about. The house, certain keepsakes, your mother's things. There it was, the threat under the silk. I felt the room go very quiet around me. Are you trying to blackmail me with my dead mother's jewelry? I asked. Vanessa actually had the nerve to look offended. I'm trying to remind you, there's collateral damage. No, I said softly. You're reminding me why none of you ever get to be near me again. Then I stood up and opened the office door. She rose more slowly, lips pressed tight. At the threshold, she turned and said, You could have had an easier life if you just learned when to stop. I met her eyes. And you could have had a quieter one if you'd married a better man. She left without another word. Mia looked up from reception as Vanessa swept past. When the elevator doors closed, Mia turned to me and said, Should I mark her as do not admit? I smiled. Yes. The beautiful thing about a false narrative is how fast it collapses once the audience sees the wiring. Spring came early that year. By late March, the snow grime had lifted from the curbs, and with it, a lot of people suddenly found their courage. My mother's sister mailed me a box of old photographs and a note that said, Your mother knew, and sorry I stayed quiet. A former heart client called to apologize for assuming the wrong child had the brains. Even Father Michael, who had spent years preaching reconciliation like it was a universal cure for rot, requested a meeting. I agreed because I was curious what repentance sounded like when reputation was at stake. He folded his hands in the parish office and told me my father was suffering under the weight of recent events. I almost admired the phrasing, recent events, such a gentle wrapper for years of cruelty. I don't hate him, I said. That would imply he still has emotional access to me. The priest looked startled. Good. I'm not seeking revenge, I said. I'm refusing erasure. That was the first time I said it out loud, and once I said it, everything else made sense. I wasn't trying to destroy my father. I was declining to disappear so he could stay comfortable. Meanwhile, the world around him was becoming less comfortable by the hour. One of the local business journals ran a small item about leadership changes and continuity disputes at Heart Facility Services after multiple regional account transitions. It wasn't a scandal piece. Worse, it was dry, professional, credible. No one fears gossip like a man who relies on polished surfaces. Then came the birthday video. I never posted it. I didn't need to. Tori sent it to 2 cousins who sent it to someone else who showed it to his wife who happened to sit on a fundraising committee with Vanessa. By the following week, I had 3 separate people tell me they had heard about the dinner, with the careful face people use when they want details but know they don't deserve them. The story my father had built over decades was dying the way old buildings die. Not all at once, support by support, until one day, everybody notices the floor feels wrong. And then the bank froze the account. I didn't hear it from my father. I heard it from Mason. At 11:53 p.m. on a Sunday. He called from a number I didn't recognize, and against my better judgment, I answered because it was late enough for emergencies, and part of me still reacts to blood even after it poisons you. He was drunk. Or panicked, maybe both. They froze the damn reserve, he said before I could speak. I sat up in bed. What? The reserve account, the bank, the one tied to continuity coverage. They froze it pending review because of your stupid letters and the stupid vendor thing, and now payroll is going to bounce, and Dad says... I swung my legs over the side of the mattress. What reserve account? Silence. Not long, just long enough. Then he said too quickly, Nothing, forget it. But I didn't forget it. because I knew exactly which reserve he meant. The emergency continuity reserve established during the hospital crisis 2 years earlier. The one my father insisted would only sit for 1 quarter. The one attached to the same documentation bundle he never read. The one that required dual release authorization, his and mine. My name, still there. My father had been using an account tied to my entity structure without fully severing it, probably because doing so would have required explaining too many ugly truths to a bank officer and several clients. That was why he had started calling so frantically in January. That was why Vanessa had come. That was why they wanted de-escalation, not just reputation, liquidity. The next morning, my attorney nearly smiled when I told her. "I had a feeling," she said. "Within 48 hours, we confirmed enough to move. A formal demand went out regarding unauthorized use of continuity-linked reserve structures and misrepresented approval activity. I won't bore you with the mechanics. The emotional truth is simpler. My father had spent years treating my work like background noise while quietly standing on it to look taller. And now, the floor was being measured." In April, we moved into the suite across the hall because we needed more space. Same floor, bigger footprint, better light. The morning the new sign went up, Celia sent flowers with a card that read, "For the woman they mistook for support staff." I laughed so hard I had to sit down. We celebrated with grocery store cupcakes and cheap sparkling water in paper cups because I still didn't trust success that arrived dressed like a movie montage. The team did, though. Angela cried, Jorge took photos, Denise tapped the new conference table and said, "This feels expensive," like she was blessing it. Around noon, Mia buzzed me. "There's a courier here for you." It was a thick overnight envelope from Hearts Council. Settlement proposal. They wanted confidentiality, non-disparagement, mutual release language, and, this was my favorite part, my confirmation that all questioned approvals had occurred within a shared family oversight structure. Shared family oversight structure. That's one way to say, please help us blur the fingerprints. The settlement amount looked large if you didn't know what silence costs. I sent it back unsigned. 2 hours later, my father left voicemail number 38. He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He sounded tired, in a way I had never heard before. "Lena," he said, "I know you think I deserve this. Maybe I do. But Mason has children. Whatever happens to me, don't do this to them." That voicemail sat in my inbox like a stone, because there it was. Not remorse, not love, not even truth. Just another attempt to drape innocent people over the consequences so I would crawl back into my old role and carry what belonged to him. I deleted it, not because it didn't hurt, because it did, and pain no longer qualified him for access. 6 months after the birthday dinner, on a wet May morning, my father came to my office in person. Not the way he had before, hiding behind reception rules and angry calls. He came stripped down by circumstance. No driver, no polished speech ready, no wife, no brother at his shoulder. Just my father in a rain-dark overcoat, standing in the lobby below my office suite while 2 security guards asked him, for the 3rd time, to leave the property. I saw him on the lobby monitor before Mia said a word. He looked smaller than I expected, not physically, energetically, like some internal architecture had collapsed and nobody had told his posture yet. "Do you want me to send him away?" Mia asked. I looked at the screen, at the silver in his hair I hadn't noticed spreading that far, at the wet shoulders, at the impatience in the guard's stance, at the way he kept glancing toward the elevators like he still believed he belonged wherever I was. Then I said, "No, I'll come down." The elevator ride felt unnaturally slow. My heels clicked once on the lobby marble when the doors opened. He turned immediately. For a second, neither of us spoke. That lobby was all glass, brushed steel, potted plants, and early commuter noise. Two men in suits by the coffee kiosk, a receptionist pretending not to stare. One of my own clients just stepping in from the street and pausing when he recognized me. Witnesses. My father hated witnesses when he wasn't controlling the narrative. "Lena," he said, stepping toward me. The security guard moved subtly between us. "I'm fine," I told the guard. My father swallowed. He actually swallowed. "I need 5 minutes." "You have one." He looked like he wanted to be angry at that, wanted his old footing, but panic kept slipping through the cracks. "It's Mason," he said. "There's a review board and the bank, and if you—" He looked around the lobby like the walls themselves might be listening. "They're treating this like fraud," he said. "If you tell them the approvals were part of your process." I actually laughed, not loudly, just once, because there it was, not an apology, not regret, not even a decent lie, a request. He had come to my building, in the rain, before business hours, to ask me to help rewrite reality one more time. "For whose process?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "Don't do this here." "Here is fine." He lowered his voice anyway. "The review board thinks Mason authorized payments he shouldn't have. The bank is asking questions about the reserve structure. If you explain that you handled those approvals informally, we can contain this." Contain. That word almost made me angry enough to forget how calm I'd become. Almost. "So let me make sure I understand," I said. "You called me a disappointment in front of 22 people, fired me at my own birthday dinner, told the family I had an emotional episode, let Mason blame me for failures after I left, tried to pressure my clients, and now you want me to say forged approvals were mine?" His eyes flicked to the security guards, to the receptionist, to the man in the navy raincoat standing 10 feet away, pretending to stir sugar into his coffee. Witnesses. He hated witnesses. His voice turned hard. "Lower your voice." I didn't. "No." The word landed flat and clean in the middle of the lobby. He took one step closer. "You are making a very serious mistake." I looked at him and, for the first time in my life, saw no mystery in him at all. Just pattern. Pressure, blame, shame, panic. The same machinery in a more expensive suit. "The serious mistake," I said, "was forging my initials after I was terminated and assuming I'd still crawl back to protect you." His face changed. Not because I had accused him, because I had said it where other people could hear. He glanced toward the receptionist's desk again and lowered his voice to a whisper that shook anyway. "You don't know it was me." "No," I said. "I know it was someone inside Hart, and I know you're here asking me to help bury it, which tells me everything I need." He inhaled sharply through his nose. For one second, I thought he might try anger again, the old version, the one that had worked on me since childhood. Instead, something even uglier came out. "Do you want your brother's children to lose their house?" There it was, the final costume, innocent children draped over male failure like a shield. I folded my arms. "Did you think about me losing my livelihood when you stood up at my birthday dinner with a microphone?" His mouth opened, closed. Rain tapped against the lobby glass in hard little bursts. The man with the coffee stopped pretending not to listen. So did the receptionist. So did both guards. And suddenly, my father looked exactly like what he was. Not powerful. Cornered. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folder. Cream stock. Legal tab. My name typed on a label. Of course. He hadn't come for 5 minutes. He'd come for a signature. He held the folder out. "Just read it." I didn't take it. He pushed it a little closer, jaw tight with impatience. "It's a clarification statement, that's all." "Read it to me." "Lena, read it!" His nostrils flared, but he opened the folder. His fingers were trembling now, just slightly, enough for me to notice. "It states," he said, forcing each word out, "that during your operational oversight period, certain vendor approvals may have been executed under delegated initials by internal staff with your knowledge." I tilted my head. "So, a lie?" "It's not a lie, it's a lie." He looked up at me, and for a second the mask slipped all the way off. Not grief, not remorse. Contempt that the person he'd dismissed had become the only person who could save him. "Why are you doing this?" he said. That question, after all of it, it settled over me so coldly I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I'm not doing this," I said. I stopped stopping it. The elevator opened behind me. Mia stepped out holding a slim black umbrella and a file box against her hip. She saw us, paused, and instantly understood enough to stay quiet. My father followed my gaze and his face flushed. He realized, too late, what he looked like. A man begging outside the office of the daughter he had publicly called worthless. He lowered the folder. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse. "If this gets formal, there's no coming back from it." I gave him the kindest answer he had ever earned from me. "I know." The man with the coffee glanced up then, and I recognized him fully. Thomas Greer, board member from the municipal group we had signed in March. He gave me a tiny, unreadable nod. He had heard enough. My father saw it too. That was the moment the humiliation finally reached him. Not when clients paused contracts, not when banks started asking questions, not when lawyers sent letters. Now, in a bright lobby with rain on the glass and strangers witnessing what he had been reduced to. He took a step back, then another. "You are my daughter," he said, but it came out thinner than he intended, more accusation than truth. I looked at the folder in his hand, at the expensive coat gone dark at the shoulders, at the man who had spent a lifetime confusing access with ownership. "No," I said quietly. "I am the consequence." Nobody moved. Not the guards, not Mia, not the man with the coffee. Nobody needed to. My father stared at me for one long beat, maybe waiting for softness to appear. It didn't. Finally, he slid the folder back under his arm, turned, and walked toward the doors. Not fast. That would have looked like fleeing. Not slow enough to look dignified either. Just the pace of a man trying to keep what little shape he had left. The doors opened. Rain swallowed him. And that, right there in the lobby of my own office building, was the cleanest payoff I could have imagined. Not because he suffered, because he understood. He understood I would never carry him again. Things ended the way real things usually do. Not with one dramatic explosion, with a series of doors closing. 2 weeks after that lobby scene, Heart Facility Services lost the municipal review. A month later, St. Catherine formally moved continuity work elsewhere. Eastline never came back. The internal review around the forged approvals widened enough that Heart's counsel stopped sending aggressive letters and started sending careful ones. Mason was quietly removed from day-to-day operations before the summer. Not announced, just erased from email signatures and meeting invites, the way incompetent sons usually are when their last name stops being enough. Vanessa put the house on the market in June. I found that out the same way everyone else did, from the listing photos. She had staged my mother's old piano in the front room with white hydrangeas on top, which felt so perfectly cruel and tasteless I actually smiled. Father Michael wrote once more, asking whether I would consider reconciliation. I did not answer. My Aunt Denise came by the office with lemon bars and gossip and stood in my doorway crying because she said my mother would have loved the green wall in the conference room.
She was right. Celia expanded my contract. Angela got promoted. Jorge bought his wife the gold bracelet he'd been talking about for 3 years. Denise from Newark finally took a vacation without checking her phone every 7 minutes. And me? I turned 31 in a quiet restaurant with 6 people I trusted, no microphone in sight, and a cake I actually got to eat. No speeches, no performance, just a candle, one clean breath, and a table full of people who knew exactly what I was good for. I didn't hear from my father again for a long time after the lobby. Not directly. There were messages relayed through other people, of course. There always are. He misses you. He's under pressure. He's not well. He says family should not end this way. But family had ended long before that. It ended in every small theft of credit, every polished insult, every time my pain got repackaged as my flaw. The lobby was just where he finally had to see it. Months later, one envelope arrived at the office with no return address. Inside was a single item: the cream-colored birthday termination notice he had slid across the table that night. Folded once. No note, no apology, just the paper. I looked at it for a long time. Then I put it in a frame and hung it inside the storage room where only my team could see it. Angela read it once and said, "Petty, I respect it." Maybe it was petty, but not for the reason people think. I didn't frame it because I needed to remember the humiliation. I framed it because it was proof. Proof that the night he thought he was ending my life in front of an audience, he was only introducing the part where I stopped letting him narrate it. The last time my father called me a disappointment, he had a microphone in his hand. The next time I saw him, he was standing in the rain outside my office, asking me to save him.